Hello, I am Tato Cat and welcome to my channel. Today we are playing the letter. Previously, we insulted more people as Marianne, and then by more people I mean Isabella, because why not? Oh, Marianne. And then we finally come to the right house after going through security. And we're only 5 minutes late, which the butler, Hansi, was very surprised about and pleased with. He's like, oh, you're only 5 minutes late. I guess normally it takes longer. And we used looking for the loo as a guise to snoop around the house after hearing a crash. Because the Wrights were still getting ready, even though they said 10 o'clock. They don't believe in being on time, I guess. And so we looked through the house to get the real tea as we waited for tea and drank tea. And then the ghost appeared after we heard some stuff on a radio about a student at our old college falling off a building that may have had foul play. And we got freaked out because we saw the ghost. This guy caught us. And we said something about catching and pitching. He was like, I don't play baseball. And then finally, the wife chimed in. And that is where we left off. Alright, let us continue. I'm used to it though, much like how I'm used to so many years of hearing people mispronounce my name. I'm sorry. Okay? People mispronounce my name too. I get it. So, yeah. My bad. Besides berating or correcting my client, it would be extremely impolite, and Marianne doesn't sound too bad when she says it. What? How do you say her name? Is it Marianne? Instead of Mary Ann? To be fair, it doesn't seem like she's late on purpose.
I see you're up, darling. You know, you could have woken me up as well.
Are people usually late on purpose? I guess sometimes people are.
Were you showing Marianne around? Not that there's much to see. This place is so tiny compared to the mansion.
I'm more worried about the way she stares at me, judging. Such a look. Like we have any room to talk about judging people. It doesn't suit her pretty face at all. Just seeing Miss Wright reminds me too much of her. And maybe I'm starting to hear her again. See her again when I shouldn't. I should have left it all behind, forgotten it. To think that she would be looking at me that way. I could only feel my hands tremble.
Oh yes, just showing her around and getting to know each other. Isn't that right, Marianne?
Yes, of course. And your butler was making breakfast a while ago. So if you want to get right to that...
Breakfast would be lovely.
There's no denying the clients when they invite me over to have the table. Though it is too personal to share a meal in their home, it would be terribly rude to deny their invitation. Ooh, pancakes. Besides, the pancakes did look and smell heavenly. What is this stuff? What is that? A bowl of clotted cream, fruits, syrups, jams, and other spreads are laid out next to them, making for a colorful arrangement. I guess this is jam? If this was a brunch with friends, I would have gladly helped myself to the whole lot. But as it is, I accepted just a few pieces of pancakes and topped it off with a lemon and sugar.
You know, I was a tiny bit serious when I said I wanted a helipad.
And you're not serious about the greenhouse, the vineyard, and the stables?
Well, I do want those too, but I know you'll agree to those.
I don't see where you'd put a helipad on that place.
We're talking about interiors here, honey. You don't handle exterior designs and whatever handles those sorts of projects do you, Marianne?
I'm able, actually, and willing to take a project of that nature. I was an architect in Ireland before. Of course, that's another contract entirely. I also suggest we finish the house itself before working on any additions to the rest of the property. There won't be any problems about ownership this time, will there? Pardon if I'm crossing a line, but the acquisition was rather quick.
Oh, don't you worry. We've got everything sorted this time around. I've talked to Miss Cooper and Mr. John from BRC, as well as the old owners.
Who were the old owners?
Everything has been paid in full, and all we're waiting for is the paperwork from the land registry. They're letting us move in as soon as we please. It's not like they were living there in the first place.
That's good to hear. The problems that could arise from renovating another person's home would be... well, let's not dwell on it. First off, we'll want to know how you want the place to look. It's pretty furnished as is, but I understand if you want to modernize the whole thing.
Actually, I'd prefer to keep the place looking as it is, but at the same time, I want modern appliances. You worked on the Ludgate's Christchurch summer residence. I do remember there being an oven I thought was a simple drawer before. Make them look vintage, antique, blend in with the rest of the decor.
Customize appliances then. I can't find someone for that, and if you can't tell me what you specifically want, it'll hasten up the process. We're talking about electronic appliance manufacturers. If you have a preferred brand to work with.
Splendid! So, what is next on our agenda? All the other interior designers we've hired in the past did not have us this involved.
I stopped. What sort of half-baked designer did that? If I knew who they were, I would have words. This isn't the time or place for it, however. Instead, I use this brief pause to pull out the floor plans I brought with me.
We'll have to figure out what you want to do with the rooms. Here, we can have a quick run through.
What is that little room next to the master's bedroom?
The one that says... quarters? I assume it's quarters. Like back in the old-timey days where they had someone on call 24/7.
Oh, as far as I could tell when I saw it, it's a second bedroom of sorts. Used, apparently, for the ladies-in-waiting who has served Lady Charlotte Ermengarde, which is strange, as that isn't the norm for these sorts of houses.
Well, we're not stuffing Johans in there. He won't fit.
Oh, nice.
You don't suppose we could turn it into a walk-in closet and a dressing room?
I love fashion, but do we really need to turn an entire room into a walk-in closet, dear? We'll have large closets and a wardrobe in the bedroom already.
Says the one who takes 3/5 of our closet. Well, what do you suggest we do with it?
I thought a utility room of some sort would be nice. A craft room where I can do fun things. Or maybe a children's room might be nice. You know, for when Kylie comes over. Or if Rochelle visits once she's had a baby.
Ah, Rochelle.
1, you are not inviting that witch. And 2, there's a whole mansion for Kylie to play in. We don't need a children's room, and you don't even do arts and crafts. I'd like to turn the guest's room and the study into my personal office, by the way, if you don't mind.
Of course.
You can turn it into a personal office if I can have my utility room. It's just the one room of the many. I'm taking that room for myself, no matter what you say, dearie. So you might as well take this deal. You're always out doing business anyway.
Yeah, if you guys have like 1.5 rooms, just to do whatever jerk things you do in there, why can't you have the tiny little extra room that you're going to turn into a closet?
The real problem is the theater. Whatever are we going to do with all that space?
Fine, we could turn it into our own personal cinema, I suppose. Might as well have it, if you plan on not having a telly in the parlor.
Yes, well, I don't want guests to be glued to the telly when they come over for a meal and some tea. By the looks of things, we can keep the rooms as what they are on the ground floor, though. The ballroom would be perfect for parties.
Do we really need a dining hall, though? I don't suppose we can't convert it into a garage.
Why do you have to say garage like that? Where is the dining hall? So, you want to turn this room into a garage that goes into the kitchen? That's a bit weird.
What for? You can park your cars outside.
What about that room, right there, in the northwest corner?
That's sleeping quarters for the household help?
Oh, that is perfect! Johans will be glad if we have other staff members who stayed in. It'd be convenient so they don't have to make the trip from Luxbourne to the mansion when they're needed.
You'll definitely need a lot more people to maintain a property of this size.
The mansion is really a lot bigger than I thought. Look at all these rooms. I didn't even know there was a music room next to the parlor because of what happened.
There was a grand piano in there too, when we checked during the tour.
Did you hear that, Luke? Maybe you can take up playing the piano again. Oh, you should have seen him when we were younger, Marianne.
Is he less of a jerk?
It's not like I was very good with the thing.
Oh,
he's
hush
blushing.
you. You were no Mozart, but I loved hearing you play nonetheless. He'd come over to my home and he'd play such fun tunes. He'd sing too and I'd dance and it was just...
Mr. Wright playing the piano? I can't imagine it. But the earnest way in which Miss Wright said so told otherwise.
Anyway, what do you think of these plans, Marianne?
Sounds like a lot of stuff.
Are we not even going to consider one of my requests? Not even just a closet or just a garage?
Quit saying garage like that.
Now, that isn't fair, is it? You're not the only one who's going to be living here.
You're already getting a wine cellar, a study office, whatever, stables, and something else that you wanted that I don't care about.
I hardly see how that's unfair. I told you you're getting your office and your theater, the greenhouse, the vineyard, and the stables.
Oh, those other things.
That sounds fair, does it not, Marianne?
Don't ask her that. Well, yes, sounds fair. We can compromise. So when will get him to like her and when will get her to like her? Okay. I think it sounds fair. Let me guess, he's gone down in relationship. Yeah, I thought so. But she likes me a lot more. Miss Wright has her points, though I really didn't want to butt into the spat of a husband and a wife. But with the way the two are looking at me to settle this, I might as well just keep to the facts instead of giving an opinion.
Mr. Wright, your plan isn't quite feasible from an architectural perspective. I'm not even sure how much we can do without closer inspection. Well, the one about the garage, at least. A walk-in closet is easy enough, but the garage?
See, a garage isn't architecturally feasible and it isn't going to be financially sound as well. We're already going to spend a lot on your other requests. You have several acres of land to park on already.
What? Did you calculate that on the fly?
It doesn't take that hard to figure that out.
Financially sound my foot. You're probably just thinking up of imaginary numbers.
Okay, so first of all, you would have to knock out an entire wall to get it to open up from the outside to the inside. Then you'd probably have to change the ground to concrete or something. And also the kitchen is like there too, so that's going to be weird. So either you're going to change which door goes to the kitchen, which means you'll have to take a door away and fill in that space and then open up a door somewhere else. That's a lot of money.
Might I remind you that I was a financial manager? I also looked over and approved the expenses of our other houses. I know the rough course of these things by now, love. Masters in business administration, major in accounting. Sometimes I think you forget that I'm not as dumb as I act.
That catches my attention more than anything. It sounds more unbelievable than Whiskey playing the piano. She really didn't seem like the type.
Business administration and accounting? What university?
Lux upon you, of course. Go Lux Dragons, red and gold.
Excuse me, how about we move on this chit-chat ahead and do whatever else needs to be done sometime today? I had to cancel my appointments for this, you know. We might as well do a proper inspection with the designer this time, just to get it out of the way.
I did not hear that. I think my headphones are dying.
We might as well do a proper inspection with the designer this time, just to get it out of the way.
Okay.
Yes, no time like the present. You want a thorough inspection? Might as well do it now. We actually took another look at the property yesterday, though it was brief. But I'm sure you would want to see it yourself, to spot anything we might have missed.
It's not like I have much of a choice, do I? Riding to the Ermengarde Mansion in their rice is an awkward affair. Is that like a Royce? Like a Rolls Royce? The mansion's arrangements were discussed over breakfast during the meeting, and the Wright couple had an argument about the mansion's arrangements. In the end, they decided a visit will settle it. Fantastic. Not only am I worried about scuffing the expensive leather seats, but I'm also worried about getting in the middle of another couple spat. With the tension thick in the air, I can feel them starting at each other at any time. Nobody's saying anything, up until Mr. Wright tells his valet to turn the damn radio off, and for a moment, I think that he might start. But instead, he just stays quiet, and so do the rest of us. In the end, the sufferable silence stays. I have never been so glad to see a house. Stepping out of the car and up to the mansion meant the end of the uncomfortable ride, and I can finally take a deep breath of fresh air. The beauty of the place never fails to make me gaze and wonder every time I see it as well. Miss Wright moves towards the front door, keys in hand, and I can already hear Mr. Wright plodding.
All right, Hans, we're going to go in, but I want you to look around the place. Familiarize yourself with it.
What is he plotting?
Know every nook and cranny, every inch of the lot. Go and see where we can put that vineyard and the other things we talked about. We'll want to know where to station security as well, so go around the perimeter and figure it out.
Scout the property and circle the perimeter on foot.
Oh, Hansi.
You do know this is 46 acres of land, sir.
Well, you are not driving a car over the grass. Put those long, spidery legs of yours to good use. I didn't hire you to stand around and look intimidating.
I mean, he probably did.
Go, mush.
Oh, he did not just mush him. Someday, I'd like to ask how Johannes can even stand to tolerate the man. Why doesn't he just quit? Certainly the pay can't be that good. Even I'm a bit put off by our mutual employer, and the only thing that keeps me from bailing is the fact that we've already signed a contract. At least I'll only be working with them during the duration of the project. He works with them every day.
Sometimes I think you hired me to make me suffer for your amusement.
Someday, I'd ask. I feel a bit bad for him. If it's any consolation, he'll be away from Mr. Wright, if only for a little while. We're able to enter the mansion after a bit of standing out there in the sun. The wretched, strange sunlight that is far too alien and rare. There had been a bit of problem with the missus not knowing which key was which. The first on the agenda would be the grand staircase. It seemed sturdy during the open house, but a closer inspection might say otherwise. There are no obvious marks of damage nor wear and tear, probably rethreaded during renovations. Peeking under the grand carpet, the wood is probably installed with the bark placed down to prevent cupping. The carpet itself could use a vacuum though. Structural condition, from what I see, without actually dismantling the thing, looked to be in good shape, and the handrails and support posts are firm. The work on it should be commended. I can't look much more into the rest of the foyer, however, because Mr. Wright starts to hurry us into checking the dining hall.
So, what do you think? Certainly we can't turn this area into a garage.
It's Jacobean architecture. I'd say these would be pilasters and not buttresses, but you never really know. They really liked mixing up these elements. You could say it was pretty avant-garde at the time. We might hit a support beam if we're not careful.
And in layman's terms?
From what I see here, we could risk great damage to the house if we try to turn the dining hall into a garage.
The man didn't look too pleased at this. There's a look of disappointment before he sighs and looks around the place with an air of defeat. When he moves to speak, I dread another unreasonable demand again.
This will stay a dining hall then. But if I may have another request instead, at least spruce the place up with some flowers, some plants or something. It feels so old and dead in here.
That's hardly unreasonable. Daffodils are a must, I presume.
The look that passes between the two of them. There's a genuine look of fondness there. This is the first time I've seen such an exchange between the two of them. If anyone are to see them like this, there's little doubt that they loved each other.
Of course. And I want a garden full of them.
Now, if you excuse me, I'd like to look at the rest of the house. I'll just be around here downstairs if anybody needs me.
That leaves Miss Wright and I.
He's quite fond of them, you know.
I can imagine. He looked terribly upset when we told him he can't have his garage.
I meant the daffodils. We always have a vase full of them in every house we own. Somewhere. I'd like to think. They may be about his mother. He never talks about her. I don't even know her name. He likes to flatter, claim that they remind him of me, but he's always loved the flowers, even before we married.
Much like the piano, I didn't take him for a person who liked flowers. Daffodils least of all. What's next? Am I going to find out that Mr. Wright saves kittens from burning buildings?
I'll go and snoop about upstairs. You go and do whatever it is that you have to do.
When she goes without even asking if I need her here, I'm left standing to stare at the walls. Really, I don't need to do a thorough inspection of the building itself. It isn't really part of an interior designer's job. But the architect in me is committed to doing this task with every project. I'm going to make a living space that have both form and function. I might as well make sure that the entirety of it is safe for my clients. Since I'm already here, I roam around the dining hall to check things off my punch list, if you will. What's a punch list? When it's time to move on, I hesitate. Mr. Wright said that he would be somewhere around here, on the ground floor, and I really didn't want to be alone with whiskey. I have to look through the place eventually, sure, but on the other hand, I can do it later when he's gone. I can go upstairs first if I want to. Which floor should I go first? Check the first floor, check the ground floor. We'll check the first floor. I don't want to talk to whiskey. I've already seen enough of this floor during the open house. course, I know that it was just a convenient excuse. I just want to be in the same room as Whiskey anytime soon. So I might as well just go upstairs first. The banister on the grand staircase landing are solid at a proper height. Any lower and they would be trouble. There's a small catch on the carpet though, but as long as nobody tries to run down the stairs until it gets fixed, things should be alright. And the stained glass? Art. Restored, no doubt, in the image of the last lady in the Lord of Ermengarde. Or it was supposed to be, until Lady Charlotte's fiance was brutally murdered. By a witch. A witch of all things. From what I've read, you'd think the historians of this place would be a lot more scrutinizing, filtering out stuff like that. I'm amazed they bothered with it instead of replacing it with some generic cookie-cutter design. This entire piece alone would have cost roughly 500, even £1,000,000. Lady Charlotte Ermengarde and her beloved. Looking at the mosaic, it's not too far of a stretch of the imagination to believe that the depicted image could be Mr. and Mrs. Wright. It can be easily assumed as such if one doesn't know the history of the mansion. Really, a place like this should be protected by the government as a landmark. But what can I do about it? Walking into the east wing, I try to go into the theater, but is met with an obstacle. An obstacle that is locked doors. 2 doors. 2, and both of them are locked. I'd be frustrated, would be, if I already hadn't snuck off while the Wrights were having their little business meeting with Miss Cooper before to take a peek. With what Mr. Wright wanted, you'd have to install a powerful projector, the type they use in cinemas, and projection screen. The seats would have to be reupholstered if they're to be any comfortable, and the walls will have to be covered in dark material, paint, wallpaper, or install wall-to-wall carpeting. Really, all of the rooms I could be jealous of, it's this one. I could just picture myself in there, watching old kung fu flicks on a weekend-long marathon. Makes me wonder what kind of movies Mrs. Wright would like. Rom-coms, perhaps? Her husband, on the other hand, I'd rather not think about it. In the middle of my notation and planning, I don't even realize that I'm not alone until I'm caught standing in front of the locked door like a fool.
Were you meaning to go in there? I'm afraid we won't be able to open it up today.
Oh well, I wanted to, but it's fine. I can still survey the rest of the place.
Apologies, but the key was missing when they were handed over. They told us that they'd get right back to us with it.
What? But aren't they supposed to hand over all the keys once property changes hands? That can be grounds to file a complaint.
They were already kind enough to let us move in so early. There's no need to raise a fuss about it. Worst comes to worst, we can call for a locksmith.
The air is heavy and somber when she grows quiet and glances out the window. Out towards the vast expanse that surrounds what would be their home. Their home. Then she looks back at me with a sigh and a bitter smile.
Flowers. Yellow flowers. Daffodils, dandelions, and sunflowers and the sort all up front. Just a whole garden of them. They'll make the house look lovely, won't they?
Of course. A garden is a wonderful addition to any home.
As I say this, her eyes roam over me, scrutinizing and thoughtful. I have to hold back the shiver that threatens to run down my spine at being inspected so closely.
Yes, it must be nice.
We're still talking about the gardens, yes?
I mean not having to worry about what another person thinks of you.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, what do you mean by that? She lifts her hand and points to her wedding ring before it falls listlessly to her sides. Well, we'll see how the rest of this conversation goes in the next episode. I'm Cat. Have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon.